think like today we live in some of the craziest of times, like with what's going on in Gaza and with Trump, like just like on my website I have it written that I'm interested in how people respond to their moment in history. I'd like to think that by my creating some of these photographs, people can have empathy, for the subject matter, the stories. Well, I think what's happening in Gaza right now is utterly horrific. I mean, it's a genocide happening that's the most documented mass violence ever. In my early teens, I started using my dad's camera, and that kind of got me hooked when I saw that I could do something that looked a bit stylish. When I was 13, we moved from the suburbs of Ottawa to Donoghue Road, where my ancestors had settled when they came from Ireland during the potato famine, and so we had a lot of property and like some farmland, woodland, I should say. So I'd go for long walks with my dog and I'd just take some nature pictures. But and as time went by, I got a bit more daring and started photographing people more, and that's kind of what I like doing. I think there are two types of photographers. There are people that are interested in things, and then they find out that you can use a camera to pursue those interests. And then there are other people that may go to Henry's and drop $3,000-$4,000 on a camera and then think, well, what can I photograph? Like it's outrageous what people are paying for cameras these days. Like you don't have to spend a lot of money to get a decent camera. But, like the people that drop the money on the expensive cameras aren't often the ones that are interested in the things that I'm interested in. Like, and like if I had a really cheap camera, I'd still be able to do the kind of work I do, Like I think I'd like to think that people have passions and pursue them. Well, to make money in photography today, it's in fashion and, advertising, things like that. But I was fortunate in the fact that like when I worked in mental health, I had a union job and my hours were flexible. So I could work a lot of overtime to get money when I wanted to travel. And so I had the ability to do what I wanted to do without having to think like I'll just take assignments from people that have the money. Photography for me has been a way of doing something that, like I said, could maybe have some effect on educating. I got into El Salvador April 30th, I guess it was, and the next day was May Day. And there was a big march, and it was when the war was still on, and there were FMLN flags placed on buildings along the parade route, and I thought it was quite courageous of people to do that because they'd be shot for it. And I'd heard in years past that there had been helicopters that had dropped paint on the marchers so they could be identified as being at the march after it was over. Those were some of my first impressions of El Salvador in '91 when I was there. And there were members of Comadres, the Salvadoran women's organization in solidarity for solidarity for victims of the war and the death squads. I met union people, I met academics, I met people that that had suffered, and many strong people, you know. Before I started studying photography, I traveled through Central America, and, you know, Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. It was my second trip to Nicaragua. And I think it was after that trip that I thought I'd got to do this, because I have a passion for it, you know, and I thought it could affect some change. I don't know if it can make the changes that I had hoped for. I don't know if I feel that way today, but at least it's doing something concrete, you know. Like I wish it could do more, but it's just my contribution that I can make, you know.